right, your next project is going to be dealing with Creastone. Creastone is this subject right here. It kind of has the similarities of stone or rock, but it is more user-friendly to sculpt and carve. It's a little softer, but it does get really hard like a rock, but it's a lot easier to do some carving and sculpting with. So your first sculpture project, you're going to do more just like an abstract design. I have all of your steps here. Within these steps, yes, there's unlimited possibilities. It is how far you take it and taking it to the furthest limits possible. You do have to be extremely careful in some areas because if it gets kind of fragile and thin, obviously you have to be very careful with that so it does not break on you. Now, with the Creastone, the first thing I want you to do is we need to look at some different types of tools that you will be using. And I have some stands here if you want to use chisels. I have some things that'll help you hold down your project. But your chisels, you can use small ball peen hammers, and there's regular hammers in here, and wood block hammers, and wooden hammers in here, little pallet hammers. But chisels are going to come in different shapes and sizes. Some of them have points in there. Some of these you can just use by digging and carving. You know, if you're just trying to get into a tight area and you can't get into, so you can carve it out. But a lot of these are to take away surfaces. Now when you do chisel, it's like if I was carving this area out, it's not like I want to go deep right away. You have to take out little bits at a time. And chiseling is also easier if you have an outline. And then you take your chisel and you do like a perimeter outline by chiseling it in as you go. Go around and take your hammer and chisel around that outline so you get a small groove, and do it on each side. Because then when you're done, you can come in at an angle, and I don't have enough room to do it here to show you, but you'll be able to start taking out areas, as you can see right there in my little gouge. And I have something that holds it for you so you can actually don't have to try to hold and chisel at the same time. But it is easier if you do an outline and then come back in and take out the area and do a little bit at a time, because if you try to go too deep too soon, it could break in half. So you have chisels to use to aid you. All different sizes in the box. Some of them have angles, some of them have grooves in them. And then the other thing that you're probably going to be using the most is a rasp, and it's just kind of a fancy thing for sanding. But it has different curves on it. Some are like rat tail ones, kind of look like tails. And there's different sizes in there, also in different shapes. These are very nice to use, as you can see on the paper, how fast it comes off. And the corners and so forth help you to make like grooves and angles in there, as you can tell, or you just need to round it. So these are also very nice to use for certain areas when you're trying to dig a little bit and you have some design already done. It kind of gives you a starting structure. The other things that we have to help you with carving are these little picks. Now these two kind of remind you of dental tools, but if you're trying to get in a really tight area and you just need to do some cleaning, kind of like the dentist does, well, you can go in there and clean out a spot if you're trying to maintain that shape and just pick it out. So those are different sizes, angles also back there that you can use. So these are the picks in the black containers. The last thing that you can use is a hand drill like this. And then there's different sizes of drill bits, especially if you're trying to do an opening. And think of like a tunnel effect. You're trying to do an opening, and you need just a starting point. And sometimes it's hard just to dig. But when you're using one of these all screw on and off. Okay, so you can see how the bit shrinks when you turn it, then it opens when you turn it the other way. Pretty simple, just basics. So open it until your bit fits in. You go a little bit further. And then I'm also holding onto the handle at the same time and turning, because otherwise the handle will just spin, as you can see. So hold on to the handle, tighten it so your bit doesn't come out, and then you can use it to have a starting point and start drilling it in, as you can see. Okay? So that gives you a little basis, and please keep the bits in the box because they are hard to find once we get sculpting and people get a little lazy and don't put things back where they're supposed to be. So to get started on your sculpture, what are you going to do? Well, it does not have to look like anything. It is really non-objective. What you're going to be looking at is key terminology, line, shape, and texture, okay? Those are what your sculpture are going to consist of. Whether you want to focus on one of these or a couple of them, like maybe you want to do circles and your design is all based on circles. Maybe your design is based on different types of lines. But the idea is to show that unity at the end, which we've been discussing a lot of. So your first step, just to help you get used to some of the tools, take some rasp, and I want you to take away the corners. I don't want to see perfect corners, hard edges, kind of soften the piece. Because in the end, this is made from a mold of a pop bottle. It will not be the shape, or it should not look like a pop bottle in the end if you're doing a good job. So take away some of the corners. Get used to that. Just using some of the tools. Next, take a pencil. Draw a design. But make sure your design is continuous because your bottle is three-dimensional. So it must wrap and continue around the whole entire piece. It's a continuous line. Where does it end? Where does it begin at? Draw a design on there. You can draw with pencil. Just because you have an idea, though, doesn't mean that your idea might not change. So you might have an idea here, and I have some lines here. But now, what am I going to do with those spaces? So now you have to think about this. Show different depths. Depths is different. Depths is in going concave. How far are you going in? Convex, does it bulge out? You're probably thinking, how in the heck am I going to make this bulge out? The only way to make this bulge out, this line, is to take away the space around it so this part sticks out. So you're going to have to do a little work on there. And then after you have your different depths, you're working all the way around. Look at it, make sure, the last thing, make sure you can see through an area. And when I say see through an area, what I don't want to see is a hole. That is so boring. Yeah, that is like lack of creativity right there. That'll just drop your grade completely. So I better not see anything like that. So as you're going, when you start to achieve different depths, you are going to start to think of places, see places that might be thinner, where you might be able to see through, or like maybe on your design, who knows, maybe you're carving out part of this. And now think of this, if this part was upright right here, and say this is all out, well, I can see through the other side. Seeing through doesn't always mean that, oh, here's the middle and I can see through it, okay? It's how creative you can see through the area by taking out area of design, okay? When you are finished, how do you present it? Most of this is going to be stay the way it is. I mean, if you want to paint it all one color, that is fine. You can paint it all one color when you're done if you would like to, but to show some contrast in the end, it would look really cool if you painted and then maybe try or painted certain areas so you have the light and the dark so you can still see the stone, so have different qualities. Do you want it to stand on an angle, like a 45-degree angle? Do you want it to just be boring and stand straight up? How do you want it to be presented? And then I'll give you some blocks. You can paint them black and display your piece creatively in some way. In the end, it should not look like a bottle.